Hello and welcome to this session on best practice in tourism. My name is Ivor Ambrose. I am the Managing Director of ENAT, the European Network for Accessible Tourism, and I'm the moderator of this session. We will be hearing from presentations from 3 countries, from Argentina, from Portugal, and from India. And I'd just like to say a few words about myself and about our work in accessible tourism. It's a great pleasure for me to moderate this session with some good practices from around the world. One of the things that we really focus on very strongly in ENAT is to present good practices and good projects on developments in accessible tourism wherever they may be. Not only in Europe, although we're a European organization. I would just like to welcome our speakers, and the first speaker will be Cynthia Bruno. She's from Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she has a law degree from the Catholic University of La Plata. She specializes in mediation at the Public College of Lawyers of Federal Capital, and she has a human rights degree at Austral University. She's dedicated herself to this issue of human rights in tourism since 2012. She's been linked to the Tourism Ombudsman's Office of the Ciudad Autónoma de Buenos Aires. And now she's promoted to the position of Executive Director of the Executive Directorate of Tourist Rights. I'd like to hand over to Cynthia. Please tell us how things are going in Argentina.
Thanks very much. I'm going to first share my screen here for the presentation. So, can everyone see that?
Yes.
In Argentina, our idea is to explain the work and role we play in the tourism ombudsman in Buenos Aires. And we're going to explain the relationship between the tourism ombudsman with accessible tourism and tourism as a right for everyone. So everyone should be able to have equal access to tourism. So we're going to start explaining the regulatory framework that includes tourism in Argentina and especially in the autonomous city of Buenos Aires. We have a national constitution, and in its preamble, it promotes equality amongst all, and it specifically establishes in Article 20 equal rights for aliens. And at national level, we have a national tourism law that declares tourism as of national interest and a socioeconomic and strategic activity. And in Article 2, the same national law speaks about the guidelines that in 2005 were established, and this is accessibility is one of the main guidelines, eliminating barriers so that it can be available to everyone. In the city of Buenos Aires, where we are located, at the headquarters of the tourism ombudsman, the local constitution also speaks of promoting tourism as a factor for economic and social development. This is the value given to tourism in this city. We also have a local law, Law 600, that declares and implements everything having to do with tourism. Now, internationally, we have this timeline. We have the Inter-American Agreement for people with disabilities, and then we have the paradigm change in 2008 when we joined the International Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. And in 2008, it entered into force in our country, and this became part of our constitution in 2014. So this was a change in paradigm and an improvement on this right of tourism for everyone and accessible tourism under certain principles to move forward with that activity. In other words, equality and non-discrimination, the principle of inclusion and accessibility. These are all principles that established in the convention and are implemented at national and local level. So this is the accessible tourism law. Now, what does actually accessibility mean when we talk about this whole series of activities related with tourism? So that tourism and accessibility in terms of the relationship of the person with their environment, eliminating barriers. So what makes the environment inaccessible to some people? That's what we have been working on, and that's what we're promoting here at our office. Now, we wanted to also to talk about the different actions taken along these lines that the Ombudsman has been working on. We're a body that's within the local constitution in the city of Buenos Aires. We're an autonomous organization that is mainly defends and protects and promotes human rights, freedoms, and guarantees. This is our main duty and our premise in when we do our daily work on rights, people's rights. As we said, we have the Constitution of the Buenos Aires, and we have law number 3, where the ombudsman comes in. So here we have the role of the ombudsman. And for more than 10 years now, we've been working at local level. And this is a need to generate a space within the ombudsman. And this role is specifically in charge of understanding and availing itself to responding to tourists. Now, tourist is any person that comes from their place of residence to Argentina or coming from abroad. So we want to create this space where understanding tourists are unfamiliar with many things in Argentina and in Buenos Aires, maybe the language, maybe about the places, about the regulations, they're unfamiliar. So we need to create this space, this empathy, and this consultation for tourists. Now, along these lines, everything that we do, all of the work done by the different teams here at the Ombudsman. One of these things, the things that we do is accessibility, sustainable tourism, health tourism, and children and tourism. As part of the World Tourism Organization since 2012. We've been carrying out these duties. So this is what we're particularly interested in. These are all the activities that on a daily basis are carried out by our office. Awareness raising campaigns done virtually through all of our different communication channels. We put together 2 guides, tourism guides, to explain the characteristics of accessibility of the different tourist attractions in Buenos Aires. So also all of the work that has been done year after year, specifically during the pandemic, we stopped doing in-person activities and did our activities virtually and established these areas for reflection and conversation to make tourism accessible. The first issue that we looked at was the needs and requirements to develop accessible tourism, listening to different sectors at local and international level, this, tourist destinations and their conditions of accessibility and progress made and the needs. The third point was about air transport and accessibility. And recently we looked at the experiences and regulatory framework, not only locally, but throughout the world, listening to other people talk about the situations in their towns and cities. Now, just to finish up, our 3 points that of the things that we do in terms of accessibility at the Ombudsman is that we, first of all, defend the right that tourism is for everyone, to raise awareness and to disseminate all this information, all the rights that people have, and that we want to make tourism accessible for everyone and for anyone that wants to come and visit the city of Buenos Aires or the Republic of Argentina. Thank you. So thanks very much. So this is the participation. This is what we had prepared from the Ombudsman's office. And any questions that you have our email here for suggestions, and we'd be very happy to answer your questions. And I'm very happy to participate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia. And that was an excellent presentation. You've given us a very clear explanation, I think, of how the system that you've built up in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, is based on very specific legislation. And of course, you being a lawyer, it's very good of you to present this to us in this very clear way. We would wait with most of the questions until after all the speakers. But I just ask you one quick remark. It occurred to me that you've explained very well the legislation and how this has set the framework, and you've been in touch with lots of the users as well to develop the different areas for access requirements, air transport, experiences, and so on. What about the question of the businesses? Are they being innovative? Are they able to innovate within this legal framework? Because sometimes we hear that the legal framework is holding back innovation. What would you say to that question? Does the legal framework hold back innovation? Does it encourage innovation?
The legal framework and the daily work, and is there for any conflicts that could come up with companies. Some companies communicate to us that they're working on making accessible policies. In other words, improving accessibility to resolve situations. The premise is trying to improve everything that can be improved to reach full 100% accessibility. So that's the role of the tourism sector and the consultations and interchange with companies. The idea is to try to work on this to improve and make this accessibility 100% a reality.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. So it's really pushing the businesses to start thinking, start working on accessibility and inclusion. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go now to the next. We have 2 presenters. Next presentation from Portugal. We have Elena Ribeiro to start, and then we will have Marta Santander to follow. So, Elena, could you please add your screen now? Share your screen with us now. So, Elena,
I think it's working.
It's working. Okay. Thank you. So Elena is working at the Turismo de Portugal. She's at the Department of Dynamization of the Offer and Resources of the Directorate for the Valorization of the Offer. She's the project manager of the national program all for all. And this covers many areas of activity: training, information, financing, mobilization of the tourist agents. And she's also the national coordinator of a subcommittee 8 on accessible tourism and a member of the working group of the Accessible Beach program and member of the national jury for the Most Accessible Beach Award. I'll also just briefly introduce Marta as well, who's coming in a moment. Marta is working at NEST, the Innovation Tourism Center in Portugal, as the innovation coordinator. And her work covers the promotion of innovation projects, the adoption of digital technologies in the tourism ecosystem. She has a mixed background, working both within environmental engineering and hospitality management. And she's deeply passionate about building bridges between new fields of work. Her particular skills include connecting large projects with multiple teams, and from tour operation to hospitality through startups, academia, and corporates. So now over to you, Elena, for the first part of your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ivor, and thank you for the invitation. I will start by talking about the tourism strategy 2027 from Tourism Portugal. That is based on 5 pillars. The one, value the territory, boost the economy, promote the knowledge, and also promote networking and connectivity, and also to promote Portugal as a tourism, accessible tourism destination also. Because this tourism strategy is mainly focused in people, because Portugal is well known as a warm country, a warm, welcome country, and it's part of our identity, of our culture, because people are unique and also a transversal asset. Because tourism is basically an activity from people to people. So this tourism strategy is focused on people. So also in line with this national tourism strategy and also with the environmental fund, Tourism Portugal implemented the more sustainable tourism plan 2020-2030, which represents a strong commitment to strengthen the role of tourism in Portugal. Building a better world for everyone is the main objective of this plan. And this plan also has an axis that talks about accessibility for all, because the accessibility in territories is one of the priorities of the tourist activity, and only when with an inclusive offer and accessible to all allows to obtain the pillar of social sustainability, and also strengthening the competitiveness of businesses and tourist destinations. So part of this national tourism strategy is the All for All program that includes the line of action to promote tourism for all in an inclusive approach. So this All for All program has 3 areas to work on, and it's the offer adaptation, which aims to eliminate all kinds of barriers. Also the training area, so the knowledge to tourist agents, so they can identify and respond to all the specific needs of all the tourists. And also the third area, to attract demand, building the destination renown, and also to promote accessible tourism offer, the national tourism offer. So in the area of offer adaptation, we had the accessible tourism funding line that supported 121 projects with 14.4 million euros of incentive, and the projects were related to cultural equipment, to accommodation, tourists animation, transportation, and also accessible beaches, just for a better accessibility conditions of this offer. Also, in the funding, we find the tourist improvement of the inland territories funding line with the accessibility component that supported 8 projects with more than 925,000 euros of incentive. And also the projects were related with cultural equipment, tourist information, transportation, and accessible beaches. And that leads to the program Accessible Beach program that we have in partnership with other public entities in Portugal. And in the bathing season of this year, we had 223 accessible beaches, coastal and inland. In the training area, we have the Hotel and Tourism Schools of Tourism Portugal, with initial training that has accessible and inclusive tourism training unit with 25 hours. Also the continuous training with training programs and modular training, and the training plan of the last year and this year. We had training sessions in our digital academy that were directed to tourist agents and public entities. Also, we have technical content in All for All program webpage. We have the best practice guides in accommodation, in monuments and museums, in tourist animation, and we have a new guide in accommodation, accessible accommodation. We have also in this Wall for All webpage the success stories where we promote all the best national practices. And to end my part, also the attract demand area that is included in the All for All program. We have our promotional national channel, Visit Portugal, that has a page dedicated to accessible tourism with all the information that the tourists require. We also have participation and promoting the platform Tour for All from Accessible Portugal. And we have a dedicated channel in YouTube to the program All for All, where we have the videos that show that Portugal is beginning to be an accessible tourism destination. So I give the floor to Marta to tell you about the app Guest Access.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena, and thank you, Ivor, for the invitation. So just to give you a short framework on this web app, we are Nest. Nest is the Innovation Tourism Center in Portugal, which results as a private and public and private partnership for innovation in Portugal, and is comprised of 8 entities coming from different sectors, namely from communication, from technological background, from mobility. And so our mission here is to help SMEs to transit into the digital economy. And we do that by promoting an innovation culture, by working closely to the industry and academia, by supporting experimentation of new ideas and solutions, and also by promoting the international cooperation. This project comes within a project that we have, which is called Future Labs. And Future Labs are free zones for piloting and testing, which in fact is the creation of physical or virtual spaces aimed at accelerating experimentation processes and promoting research and innovation technologies. So we partnered with one of the schools of Turismo de Portugal, and we gathered the talent, which are startups and students, with the corporates and the idea generation. And so we come together to, being challenged by Turismo de Portugal, we came up with a digital tool that it's called Guest Access. Yes. So Guest Access is, in fact, a web app that is for training the accommodation staff in accessibility and inclusive service. I want to make a point that this is not for disability people, but this is more for the human resources of accommodation in tourism. It can be from hostels to hotels, and it's free for everyone. This was first launched in May this year, and this web app is aimed to be used or in a welcome moment when we receive new members of the staff, or whenever receiving a guest that has some disability. So in this web app, we've got, if you look at the third screen, we've divided into two main features, which is a disability profile. And in here, we characterized 5 disability profiles in which we included the senior segments, not because it is a disability, but because we foresee that it has many special necessities that people should be prepared for. And also in the second screen, you can see the accommodation areas, which for now, at this moment of the project, we started with the accessible pathways, indoor mobility, rooms, and restaurants. Just to give you a little more detail about how it works inside the accommodation areas, we can have all the legal requirements for the width of doors or the accessible pathways, which procedure should we have in the check-in and the check-out, in the amenities, or even complaints or service recommendations for the staff. We've also added 3 more features, which are additional ones. Elena, can you pass, please? Yes. So we've also put some gamification into the web app. That is, for people who want to log in, they can put their email, and they can do some quizzes around these accommodation areas and around this content to see if people are understanding what they are reading. And also we have added a checklist with 10 items so that people can look in their accommodation to see if it is working, or what do they have to respond to their guests. We are already working on the next phase of this guest access of this web app. At this point, we've started with 1 school. We are now going to develop the second phase with 5 schools of Turismo de Portugal, with more features, where new improvements, and we also see, because we've had already some municipalities coming for us to see why not to integrate this in the municipality that is already preparing themselves for accessibility. So this is it. Thank you.
Okay, and this ends our presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. That's very well presented. And I was just a quick question again, as I did with Cynthia. I can see that innovation is certainly in your target, in your view. It's in fact it's what you do to activate the whole program that you have, and just to focus on training in general for a moment. How important do you think training is as part of your whole effort here?
I think it's only the main subject, because if we have the training, the knowledge to correctly welcome a guest with the specific needs, it's better for all the tourist offer. If you have the staff of an hotel that can welcome properly a blind person, a person in a wheelchair, this will give some satisfaction to the client, and this client will promote the destination. So I think the training is clearly an important item of all this process to turn a tourist destination more accessible to all. So
yeah, I see it also as it's a foundation stone, really, for making everything work, and for oiling the wheels, making everything work together.
That's it. That's it. If you know how to welcome a person with specific needs, the job is done.
Okay, we'll come back to the questions a bit later on. So
Okay.
I just want to thank you very much for your presentation. And I will also now invite Mahadevan P., who will give us a presentation about their work in India. Now, Mahadevan is a postgraduate in tourism management. He has 12 years of academic and administrative experience in tourism management. And he's been secretary of the district tourism in 3 districts under Kerala tourism, a part of India where you've had lots of bad weather recently, and I know that it's still around you at the moment. I hope we keep your contact in this call. So Mahadevan has also been part of projects under World Wildlife Fund India. He's also authored several academic textbooks, and he's been instrumental in successfully implementing the unique projects in accessible tourism and use of technologies in heritage transmedia interpretation. Now, what he's going to talk to us today is about his present work in Sustira, Sustainable Tourism and Hospitality Innovation, Research and Accreditation. And he's the Chief of Operations for Destination Benchmarking and Certification. He'll be talking to us about the work that he's been doing in this area on accessibility, but he's also an auditor and advisor of green destinations for the Global Sustainable Tourism Council, an accredited certifier, and he also is heading the implementation of Green Destinations Awards and Certification Program. So we're very pleased to welcome you, Mahadevan, to tell us about your work in accessibility. Thank you.
Yeah. And can you see the full screen, sir?
That's perfect.
Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So greetings from India. So today I am presenting a design of Gamyara, that is a standard for accreditation of accessible tourism facilities in destinations in India. So this is a working paper. So we are already in the process of developing the standard and applying in selected destinations and then rolling out to all over the country. So as you are aware, India has an estimated population of 196.3 million people who are disabled. And even it is even increasing. So, and compared to the other destinations in Europe or in the Americas, we are still in the nascent stage of creating facilities for the physically challenged people. So even if we create some basic amenities at the maximum 50 million people, it is significant from a tourism angle for a big country like India. And towards accessibility in India, we have already adopted some of the principles like the UN CRPD and the Vivaco Millennium Framework towards making public places in countries in Asia and Pacific physically accessible for all. And apart from this, the government of India has launched Accessible India campaign or the Sugamya Bharat Abhiyan. It is already 5 years in operation, where all the government offices, educational institutions, the public places, including the tourism destinations, parks and gardens, are slowly being transferred into universal design. And complementing this, the Ministry of Tourism, Government of India has launched an annual award for accessible or barrier-free destinations since the last 3 years. So this is the present situation, and the work has been done in India. And we decided to have a professional accreditation standard for destinations in accessibility in India, and we have studied the different various awards and accreditations that are in place across the globe, especially in of the UNWTO, the ATDCP, then the work of INAT and the European Commission. So you can see that there are a lot of destination awards and accreditation programs going in, worldwide, and the Global Sustainable Tourism Criteria adopted by the UN World Tourism Organization has made accessibility for all a mandatory criteria for all tourism destinations globally. So based on this, we have launched a small and simple national standard for India for the accessibility. And we have named it Gamyada. And Gamyada is a Sanskrit word which means easily accessible or reachable. And this certification is it's a self processed by the destinations. And we have 3 different levels for the same. And one is the basic level, second an intermediate level, and third one a universally accessible level. So it is based on the 3 major principles of universal design, that is accessibility, visitability, and adaptability. In the first phase, the destinations can slowly make the basic amenities, that is the lower level or the basic level, create the utmost necessary amenities for people who are differently able. Then they can proceed to a participatory model where they can implement more sophisticated technologies and devices. And finally, they can convert that destination into totally universal accessibility. And that is what you can see from the chart. The first level, it is the basic accessibility, where we go for the visual aesthetics of the destination without compromising on the visual aesthetics. We will make the basic features there. And the second level, we will make it more participating or the intermediate, where the visitability, the entire destination will become accessible for the people who are having physically disabilities. And the third level, adaptability means the entire destination and its experience, all the activities, all the features in the destination are they can be fully experienced by all sorts of people. That is fully akin to the universal design. Simultaneously, the destinations will get Gamyada barrier free, that is the first level of certification, and the Gamyada accessible, that is the second level, and finally they will get Gamyada inclusive. So they can augment their facilities step by step, and finally they can reach the tertiary level or the making it a fully inclusive destination. And we have classified the inventories into 3 categories. Either one is facilities, second one landscapes, and the third one you have the facilities, landscapes, and the adaptation features. And in the level 1, you can make basic amenities like restrooms, drinking water facilities, ramps, accessible parking, signage, resting area, basic safety measures, information and assistance that is needed by the various types of physically challenged people. And you can see some of the works which we have already completed in nearly 50 plus destinations in the state of Kerala. So not only in Kerala, in other states of India also, the tourism destinations are slowly becoming universally accessible. And you can see the toilets, the ramps, the drinking water facilities and resting areas that have been created in some of the parks and beaches in Kerala. And the second, in the intermediate level, you can develop more added features or augmented features like accessible cafeterias, then offices, women-friendly facilities like lactation rooms, then continuous pathways where people can travel without level differences in wheelchairs, then motorized and battery operated wheelchairs, etc. And here in the landscapes, you can see accessible attractions like viewpoints, parks, then the other features like gaming zones, etc., which are universally accessible. And finally, visitor services, we have prepared tactile maps, braille pamphlets, warning alarms, induction loops, etc., which will make a participative experience for the tourists with disabilities. And you can see some of the features like lactation rooms, the viewpoints which are accessible, which have been created in some destinations in India and Kerala. And finally, the destination will move to the universal or the inclusive level. Here, the entire destination will become 100% accessible, and you can use battery cars. The entire internal transportation will be universally accessible, open chair lifts, then fully connected tactile parts, which will guide visually challenged across the destination campus, then interpretation using audio gates, touchscreen kiosks, then augmented and virtual reality sensors, Internet of Things use, and then the entire activities. Like we have added accessible boating features, then boardwalks, then even a trek or a soft trek or a green walk across a campus. Everything can be done by all sorts of people. And here, each destination can plan their own innovative best practices also. So you can see the tactile pathways we have created, and this is an example for a battery operated accessible vehicle, which is in Tamil Nadu, in Srirangam and Mamallapuram, the major heritage sites of Tamil Nadu, and in Karnataka, all the UNESCO World Heritage Sites, they have introduced the battery operated cars which are accessible by persons with disabilities. And in the third, you can see the touchscreen kiosk. So it has an audio feature also. So even it will be useful for people who are visually challenged. And finally, we have created ramps with boating facilities in some of the destinations in Kerala, which can be accessed by all sorts of people. And finally, the implementation of the standard. So we based our standard on the two works of the Ministry of the Government of India. But that is, the Central Public Works Department has created a handbook on barrier-free and accessibility. Apart from this, the Ministry of Urban Development has created guidelines for built environments across all the places in the country. And based on this, we have developed a small handbook, a 100-page handbook, which is exclusively devoted to, which can be used as a reference material for standards in tourism and leisure science. It has an access audit questionnaire to begin with, and you can plan the entire specifications has been given it, wherein you can plan each of your development in the site. And the accreditation will be through fully automated through an online platform, like the Green Destinations online platform. And we would like the previous presentation where Guest Access made a mobile application. We are in the process of launching a mobile application where the destinations can they can evaluate themselves. And when they feed the necessary documentation, the score will automatically be generated and they can get a certification level. And this will be operated by our company, Sustida, and we are honoring the standard. And since we are the representatives for the accreditation program of Green Destination in India, we would like to introduce it in all the destinations which are coming under the certification scheme. And we are negotiating, we are discussing with various state governments. And for example, in Kerala, we would like to roll out because nearly 50 to 80 destinations have at least become basically accessible. So we will see how it will work out, and then we will release the mobile application so that all public places can self-evaluate themselves. And the facilities will be made a crowdsourcing platform, so public can also see what the facilities are there. And even we have integrated this with Wheelmap in Germany. So I am also coordinating their activities in India now. So all the data will be transferred to the Wheelmap mobile application also. So people coming from around the globe, they can see which places, what is the level of accessibility in India. So that is about our presentation. And our sincere thanks to my colleagues, Mr. George MP, Ms. Naina, and Dr. Robin Jacob, Binosh Kunyappan. These are all part of the standard development team. Yeah, and hopefully by next year, I think we can roll out the mobile application and people from across the globe can utilize this. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
That was an excellent presentation, and in a very short time, you've covered a lot of ground, I know. Just ask you one question before we go into the general questions. One of the things that occurred to me was that you mentioned that already 5 years ago, there was a change in the legislation, I think it was in India as a whole, to promote accessibility also in tourism. So I'm just thinking about a timeline here. We know that many countries and many regions have developed plans and policies with timelines running for maybe in 5 years' time, or in 10 years' time, or in 15 years' time, we want to be accessible everywhere for everyone. And I'm just wondering about your timeline, because you seem to have been very quick in Kerala. But what about the rest of India? You also mentioned Tamil Nadu. Perhaps also you will be, that your solutions and your practice in Kerala will also be adopted in other parts of India?
Yes, of course. And Kerala is already a globally acclaimed tourism destination. So the barrier-free tourism was actually launched in 2018. And in 3 years' time, we can't tell we are entirely universally accessible compared to the destinations in Spain or France or other European countries. But at least we have ensured basic amenities. For example, I was in charge of 23 destinations across the middle part of Kerala, where that work has been entirely completed. So I think 50 destinations, the work has been completed, and in another 38 destinations, the work is going on. And at the national level, India has 40 World Heritage Sites. So since it is mandatory with the UNESCO, all the destinations, the heritage monuments, they have employed professional restoration consultants who can plan the basic accessibility levels without distorting the heritage structure. So I think most of the places, at least except where there is a huge level difference, like which are places which are located on a hilltop or which is on a rocky face, at least they can, the people can go through the destination sites. And most of the sites in South India, since they are located in plain level, it is now easily accessible. And now the government is planning this augmented reality and virtual reality makeovers for people who cannot access the interiors like caves, the top of the fort.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you. Okay, we'll look into the other areas in a moment. So you can stop sharing the screen now, and I think then the audience will possibly see all the speakers. We can I'd like to raise a few questions with you, because what I've got here from your presentations is really a really good picture of the way that all of us, all your presentations, have really focused on all the dimensions that I think any country or destination should think about. I would just repeat some of them for you, because I think it's been clear to us now that any country, any destination needs to have a legal framework in place, needs to have a strategy, and needs to have a policy working towards equal rights for people with disabilities and for people with all other kinds of access requirements, equal rights to be a tourist. You're coming from abroad as a tourist, you don't have quite the same rights as the citizens in a country. But as Cynthia pointed out, in the Argentinian legislation, that visitors are specifically mentioned in the legislation as having rights to enjoy tourism. And then I think also from Portugal, we've seen that the All for All program has delivered many actions in many areas, but principally it's been possible because the government has put the funding behind it. So the legislation and the policy needs to be followed up with a very strong funding. And beyond that, I think one of the things that each of you has talked about has been the capacity for innovation, and how, when you have the right conditions in place, you can foster innovation and make sure that things are moving towards your target. But I want to ask each of you, in what way are you monitoring the results of your efforts? So, I mean, how are you measuring your path towards success? And I will go back to Cynthia first. What sort of system do you have in place, Cynthia, for the way in which you monitor and assess your success? Have we got Cynthia in the call? Maybe she dropped out. I'm not sure. Let me see on my screen. Yes, Cynthia, there you are. Hello.
Se desconectó.
So, did you get the question?
No.
No, okay, sorry, I'm glad you're here. I was just asking a question then from all the presenters. We heard of what you're doing. I just want to go straight to the question, which is, how do you measure the success of your program? You have the legislation in place and you have your policies and your actions. How are you measuring the success of your program?
Para mí.
So in my case,
yes, please.
As the tourism ombudsman, we think that this is an innovation. First of all, when this was created in 2009, it was the first ombudsman in tourism. This was a public authority to deal with tourism. Therefore, it has been growing progressively since then over the years. We started being present in just one point in tourism, but now, after the pandemic and after the virtual tourism, but progressively, we have been now working in all of the different touristic corridors in Buenos Aires, the most important tourism corridors. And over the past 10 years, we have put together an incredible team, a real benchmark at national and international level in terms of accessible tourism. And for us, it's very important that this space, this contact and communication with tourism that we have built over time, it's being in very important points at local level, these different tourist attractions, and also at national level. So it's very important for us, the communication and fluid contact to raise awareness of this figure, this tourism ombudsman at the different embassies and consulates.
Right. So can you say then that the businesses themselves in the tourism sector, are they reporting back to you that they're making some progress, and what kind of difference it makes to them to be accessible?
Yes, we see this. We do see responses. Here at the Ombudsman's office, when tourism has any type of problem, not only in terms of accessibility, but rather maybe a dispute. And so when these consultations are necessary, then we do get this feedback and look for a solution to respond to the issue, to the question. So this person maybe is a traveler, and therefore we do respond to these consultations from the tourists. Sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you. I need to go on, because I want to follow that up with a question to Elena and to Marta, because one of the things that you have in your very comprehensive program is that you collect the good practices, and this is just as Cynthia was saying. They see the problems coming up and they have to solve them. You collect the good practices, and I think that's a very good example of what destinations should be doing to show the good practices that you have. And what kind of feedback do you get about the good practices? Are people following up on these good practices? Are they following the practices? Elena?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, with this promotion of our best practices in all kinds of offer of the National Tourist Offer, we can see that every year it increases the enterprises and entities that are betting in accessibility. So these best practices that we promote on our channels and on webinars, in seminars, they are changing the mindset of the tourist agents and also of the public, because the public that is at home and is beginning to understand that the offer, the tourist offer, is thinking in the specific needs of the tourists. So they begin to go out and to try all the several tourism resources that we have in Portugal, and the mouth-to-mouth promotion is working. So if you have, for example, you have a municipality that is working on accessibility, the other municipality that is neighboring that area wants to replicate that the good and best practices that the neighbor is doing. So yes, the overall program with these three areas is beginning to change the mindset of the people, and every year we are viewing the numbers increasing. Also, if you forget COVID.
Yes, and what about the visitor satisfaction as well?
Yes.
Are you
yes.
measuring this as well? Could you?
No, we don't have, do we say, a formal framework to measure that satisfaction. But we see, for instance, in airports, we have the My Way service, and we see the numbers of services that increase every year. So I think the clients are getting more satisfied. I think
simply getting more clients. You know that you're getting more clients who have specific access requirements, and obviously the country as a whole is doing something much better than you used to. So things are on the up, apart from the COVID. And I'll come back to the COVID now as we're moving towards the end here. And let me also come back to Mahadevan. What about marketing the destinations then? So once you've done all this work and done this exceptional accreditation system, which I think is very smart of you, because you build it up gradually so that everyone can start from the beginning, and even by self-assessment, they can begin to work towards a higher and higher level of accessibility. But what about the advice you give on marketing? How do you help the destinations to market themselves for accessibility?
Yeah, actually, in India, people with disabilities have a hesitation to travel. So the main problem we are facing is because since the destination is slowly becoming accessible, they don't know whichever places has become accessible for them. So just before the pandemic, when we completed the first phase of our work, we brought a lot of such people who are wheelchair bound, who are having visual hearing impairments, etc. And then we got the first-hand information from them. We made them visit our destination. The government itself gave the fund, and we had these people visiting all the places. And then they gave a great feedback regarding how they feel the infrastructure is now, and what are the shortcomings and how we can improve it. And based on this, the government has done an evaluation study, and now the state government is marketing the public places, whichever it is possible. And these people themselves are giving review. And the next thing is, even there are a handful of companies, tour operators have come up in India, which are exclusively serving the differently abled market. And there is one company in Delhi, then in Mumbai, and these people, they have advertising in their websites. They are marketing the restrictions which have become barrier-free, and even the accommodations and other activity providers also who provide such services for people. Apart from that, we are making a training program also. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Well, I'm glad to hear that, because I think it's very important that the marketing should also be in place. And as you say, that there are some companies that are able to specialize now that they get the information. But I think also it's very important to push for the mainstream, isn't it? Now, I'd just like to wrap up now. I think we've come to the end of this session almost, and just to reflect on the fact that it was actually 14 years ago when we had our first Congress with ONCE on accessible tourism. And in all that time, we started from that very point in 2007 with the newly signed UN Convention on Rights of People with Disabilities. And now, 14 years later, we can say that after that seed was planted, we can see that the whole plant is coming to fruition now, because I think we've seen the fruits of this policy, this convention, this legislation, which has helped enormously for all your three countries to move forward on accessibility. Perhaps it's taken rather a longer time than we expected, but I think we're really moving forward in many different ways. And importantly, we can learn from each other in this area. So thank you to all three of you, or four of you, presenting to Cynthia, to Elena, to Marta, and to Mahadevan for your presentations. Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you.
Muchas gracias. Adiós.
Bye-bye.